Good evening. I'd like to call to order the May 16th, 2027 meeting of the Ware Ethics Committee. And
I
we'll
hope it's 2024.
24, what did I say?
27.
See, I am ready to be out again, 27. Thank you. Thanks for the clarification. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do I have any amendments to the agenda? I have one. I want to do an update on my action item for web. Other than that, any others?
Am I on there? I apologize. I
Yeah,
didn't
on the
see it.
COE research, I figured
There you
let's
go.
go to, yeah, yep. Okay, we have, next is the accepting the minutes.
So moved, with thanks to the secretary for an exceptionally good job. Concise, all the points covered in adequate detail.
Second?
Okay, any questions, corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Obviously no opposed or abstained since that was everyone. Next is communications. I had 2 emails from a Ware member who is also doing some research on the Code of Ethics. I think y'all got those? Oh, should have gone to the group. Are you on a group?
I got
Okay.
that.
I
Okay.
did not.
Okay. Do you have your email working yet?
The only thing I have
Okay.
is what you send me.
Okay, all right, so I can forward those, but basically, he also was looking into the full Code of Ethics and his interpretation. He did a lot of good research into that, so I can, or can you forward? Do you have his?
I have
Email?
your regular email out.
No, proton.me.
Oh, Proton,
That's the,
I can get it
Okay.
outside of here.
Yeah. There were no action items, but I did reach out and thanked him for that. Next action item, obviously, open mail and determine next steps. We do not have any mail this week, so that's pretty easy. Next is the Code of Ethics research, and I'd like to turn it over to our subcommittee members for what y'all did, where we actually did.
Very good. So, Carl and I emailed, texted a little bit, then we met to discuss framing the question. And then, so we originally were scheduled, I forget the date, but there were 2 delays in our ability to get before the board, so the question hasn't been answered yet. Naomi, I'm not clear if it's been submitted yet.
It was submitted Wednesday morning.
Excellent. So we did come up with a consensus between us on the question, and then the select board asked for background on, a little bit more information. So I copied you, I did not bring that letter, but I copied you on what I sent them as in terms of my best recollection of our research and discussion, and presented it at Monday night's select meeting. And they concurred that this was something that should go to the attorney for answering, and so that's where it is.
Great.
could you share the question with us?
I would have to paraphrase, Neil, because I don't have it directly in front of me, but it was essentially,
Somebody's going to send it to me.
I assume?
Well, I think our secretary has a copy.
Yeah. I just get it.
Then I won't trouble myself with paraphrasing. But at any rate, that's where we stand, awaiting response from the attorney.
And just, well, I guess I'll see what you wrote.
Is this the current set of attorneys or the new set that the town is, I thought the selectmen were in the process of hiring?
I'm in no position to answer that.
We only just barely put out the RFP and they're due July 8th, so if you want to wait, you can, but I still think it's in the one.
Okay. The question that we asked the Board of Select if we could bring to the town attorney is, are the implementation guidelines as attached to the ethics code in the town office binding on the town of Ware and its ethics committee with the force of an appropriately passed ordinance per RSA's 31, and 41.
Could you explain what you mean by the word guidelines?
The in the document itself, it says implementation guideline. On the second page of the Code of Ethics, it says implementation guidelines on the title. And then at the bottom, it talks about enforcing the ordinance 60 days after passing of the
Right.
Article 40, was it back in 2006? So,
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that really gets to the bottom of it. I don't think anyone's doubting the Code of Ethics as passed in 2006, right? It's really, was the implementation covered in that warrant or not? And that you guys did a good job summarizing that.
Right, well, and if you can, obviously, Neil, you can go back and review what I said to the board on Monday night, but I also shared with them that, the basis of the discussion was, can we or can we not vary in any way, to accomplish the mission as we see it? I'm trying to think of other salient points. I expressed that there were strong feelings, in fact, some communication that Carl had shared, that people felt like this was part of the ordinance. And when Carl came to the town office, there was some discussion about, there was an assumption among some people that it was part and parcel of what was passed. As I said to the select board, I don't have a position either way. We're just looking for an answer for the board so that we can know what our boundaries, what our guardrails are. It's entirely up to other folks to decide that on, as far as I'm concerned, but
If,
many people have read it with different interpretations, is I guess what I'd say. Some folks have said, obviously it is, others have said, obviously it's not part of it.
if the attorney determines that it is not part of the Code of Ethics, then this board has no legal authority because we couldn't have been elected.
Well, what I would say is, it's probably an appropriate discussion for after we get an answer back, because I think it'd be completely speculative at this point, how, to what depth, in what context they would answer. As you know, attorneys tend to phrase things very carefully, and I would be loath to get ahead of that process and make any determinations on our viability. And further, I think, were that to come to be a question, it would be one for the Board of Select, not for us, but again.
and when they originally formed the Ethics Committee, there was appointments by the town moderator?
Which
Right.
didn't happen.
For the first
Oh, it
year,
didn't- it
in the
didn't
first
happen.
year, it was supposed to be in the
I
original.
was just reading how it was laid out in the, so there was no appointments made then?
Correct.
Okay.
And therefore, somebody put in an article to bypass the moderator. And the article, whatever it was, referred to, I don't remember the exact language, but it said basically in accordance with the code. Well, there is nothing in the code that talks about electing members, how many there will be, how long the terms are, and so forth. But in the implementation guidelines, that's set out. So if the implementation guidelines are not valid, then the town meeting did not set out any method for us to get elected, and therefore the elections were, I think, would be invalid.
Yeah, it would have been nice if that article had said, to have a code of ethics and, the implementation, document or ordinance that we have, that we think we have, that, people would know that it's a two-part. We're gonna have a code of ethics, and we're gonna have a ethics committee that's gonna not enforce, but
Implemented.
implement it and use these guidelines.
But I thought the original article said, a copy is in the town clerk's office, and in the town clerk's office, the two are together.
Right.
But it also said, as was pointed out in the discussion, that it would also be posted on the website, and that did not happen. The ethics code was posted, but not the attachments. So there is some, that's part of the confusion, is it appears the only, if you will, official documents were the ones that were stapled and removed several times by the staple marks in the town office. So to say that those were the attested documents, that they are the record, I think is part of why we need clarification. Just to say, what is it? Because I understand, and as I said to the board on Monday night, the instructions and the guidelines have been very instructive, and I don't see any reason for us to vary from them, but Neil, your point is well taken about the construct and how we got to these positions, but I didn't run for an ethics committee to make those legal decisions, that's why I just, here's the question. They agree, and it's off to the attorney now, so I think we're best
No,
served to
in
wait.
the last year, you created some documents as far as how we handle an inquiry.
The processes, yes.
Those are separate from
Correct.
the guideline
Right.
and the code of ethics. This is your flow chart or how you're gonna,
Right.
It was more around how do we hold hearings for, which was called out in the guidelines, setting up the process to hold hearings, and that was what we took on as our task the first
Right.
year.
But I would like to just, for the public who's listening, I think I am incredibly proud of this entire group, and by modeling ethical behavior, we're not assuming anything, we're not going off on our best guesses and just ignoring what we don't like, we're trying to get clarification so that we can do our best ethical job. So hopefully soon, maybe by the next month, we should have something, and then we can further on with that conversation. But thank you guys very much for handling that, it was nice to.
So may I consider the subcommittee has met its obligation and we are henceforth dissolved?
I believe that is the case. Yep, good job.
Thanks, partner.
All right, so the one remaining item that's still on our agenda is the spring training. Which is an L,
spring is almost sprung.
Well,
right.
If I might, the problem with proceeding with the spring training is sort of difficult in that the spring training itself spring is identified in the guidelines that are in question. And so without answering the question, and this was actually part of what prompted the original discussion, do we have to do the training in the spring? Is there any flexibility to do it when the perhaps one department is more available in the winter when they're not doing a road project, whatever? And so, that's, I think, part of the problem
It
is
is
we have
part.
to wait for that decision to see how it impacts everything else that we proceed on. Because to Neil's point, if it turns out that we are not validly chartered in any way, then that will need to be addressed before we move forward, and that's, again, not our bailiwick. So I would propose that what we do is table that until we get the response here, and then we can proceed. But obviously, in any case, this sort of begs the question that was originally out there, and that is, if we are in fact obligated to do the training in the spring, by the calendar, that gives us until June 21st, which is the beginning of summer. So, we may have to do less than an ideal, job if we are in fact bound by that timeline.
Right.
One of the things that we had discussed at our last meeting was doing a trial run of training. Wouldn't that be a good idea? So that regardless of the timing issue, we have some sense of what it is we want to do, what the reception is, what the reaction is. It might be very informative for us if we did that.
I think, and I was in favor of that when we started that discussion last time. I think we have some basic process PowerPoint slides that we could run through. I think where I got twisted around when we were looking at what we're doing is there was some discussion about, was that training even relevant to what the original implementation wanted? Were we supposed to interpret or read through the code of ethics versus here's how you would do it? But there's no reason not to do the training as it is, right?
One thing that you could do, and which is always the case with regulatory bodies, interpreting the statute that created them, you could make the argument, and forgetting about the legal questions that are being posed to the attorney. You could make the argument that the slides that we have and all of that, which are now posted on the website, right?
Not yet.
Okay, assuming they're posted before June 21st, that constitutes our initial effort at training. Hence, we're in compliance with the guidelines.
It's true. That is true. That would,
Be a Hail Mary from my position. I
Sure,
mean,
sure.
if it comes to
so, well,
that,
I would say our next
Sure.
meeting is like 5 days before summer, right? And so, right, so we could, based on what we discussed, we could post them next month.
right, and so, refresh my memory, there was a committee of two to work on the development of that,
Right, so we had,
and we presented, and so that, and that was in a public meeting.
Yep.
We had that discussion, so it's pretty much, nothing was really modified from that?
no, it was font, and then
Right.
Neil had done a nice job pointing out some things like periods and those sort of things,
So
so we,
I think that's a fair position to have that as the backup and say, if, if necessary, that can be posted and we can call it a day. And then,
But
Eh.
regardless of whether we call it a day on this issue, it should be posted. I mean, it's helpful information to people. Whether it constitutes education is a secondary issue. It's
Sure.
the kind of thing that would be very useful.
do we want to have a motion for that, or just agree?
I don't think we need a motion for
Okay,
that. And
okay.
also, our guideline talked about the supervisor providing,
Supervisor providing, ensuring that the people
Awareness,
understand the code of
right,
ethics.
some
right?
kind of,
Right,
To the extent the supervisor is obligated to do that, the supervisor can simply point to the website and say,
Okay.
you
And say,
guys
"Look at
need
this,"
to
right.
read this to know something about the code of ethics,
so we give them
the material.
a PowerPoint or some material that talks about the code of ethics and the processes behind it and definitions, et
right,
cetera, et
so,
cetera.
I mean, to Neil's point, as far as, say, since transparency is something that we strive for, because we've discussed them, posting that on the webpage, along with the processes and the code of ethics with the back page. If you send those all to Naomi and she gets those posted.
Okay,
It doesn't say this is our official training, this is the training we've developed, right?
right.
The other thing is, with most organizations, you don't start off at 100%.
Sure,
So, year one, we have this type of training. Year two, or three, or four might be very, very different,
absolutely agreed.
because the first year's efforts weren't successful, or they were successful but needed modification. There was some feedback that we got from people, positive and negative. So next year, the same issue will arise, assuming this is valid, the same issue will arise, and we can take a different tack if we think it's merited.
So it just occurred to me, one of the things that I pointed out during discussion Monday night was the nature of condition of employment in the guidelines. There's a statement in there saying that for town employees, signing is a condition of employment, and so that's another question that needs to be sorted for the town, is what is the level of, what if somebody comes in and says, no, I don't want to sign that? And then, so again, that's just a question, that was part of the discussion, and a question, or sort of baked into the question, because if you accept the guidelines, then that's in there. And so that means, I don't know what it means, honestly, and I don't know what it means
Guidelines are
for the town.
you're talking about the implementation.
Implementation
the
guidelines.
warrant article.
Well, and I'm talking about the implementation guidelines as I understand them, but, yes, we're talking about the same document.
Okay. Okay.
So, at any rate,
Okay.
that's just part of the,
Right,
what comes out.
I know that committee members are being asked to sign this document. As a member of the Finance Committee, I had to sign it. Nobody raised the question about what happens if you don't sign it. As far as I know, everyone signed it. It was sort of it's like going online, you check the boxes without reading it. But everybody did sign it, and I assume that's true for other committees as well. Luke, do you know of a situation where a town employee declined?
No,
Or they
no,
haven't
I
been
do-
asked?
No, I do not, but I don't have any information about any town employees signing it. I'm aware the committee members signed it, but I'm also aware committee members are not town employees.
Right.
So it's a different thing to say, as a committee member who's a volunteer appointed by another board or perhaps elected to that seat, it's a different thing to say to that person, you must or must not, or, you know, have the option of signing this, than it is to an employee who is relying on the town for their income to say, you have to sign this or you don't get any more money.
Did you and did we sign that? Okay. So this
We
committee.
had this discussion last time where you said you had signed it, but
Right.
you were, there was some discussion about your perspective on what that meant.
Right.
Okay. All right, so any more on the spring training? Super fastest meeting in the history of whatever. This makes up for all the times of the multi-hour meetings, right?
Well,
Okay, so Carl, the three process documents, the two-sided, and then the PowerPoint document, we can talk offline and make sure you have the latest copies of all
Right.
those things,
I'll,
but
is the latest copy in the Google Docs
I don't think the
folder.
PowerPoint is. I'll have to look, because
You
that,
can ask Eileen if she has.
I have the latest one that we
I
were
know she
working
was
on, but-
marking it up
Yeah,
for us.
yeah.
It's nice that we're doing all of this, but it will be observed by 3 people at most. Is there some way we can publicize the fact that these documents are available and should be looked at by committee members, town employees, and so forth? Because, can we put a notice on the website, for example?
Oh, yeah, we could put,
I would suggest again that we hold off till after the next meeting when we know more of our status before we start, you know, advising. I mean, again, I don't have a problem with putting it out there, and I'm not suggesting in any way that it won't be out there as the training piece. I'm just hesitant for us to start bringing attention to documents that when we're not clear on our situation. Am I making sense? It's just my opinion. I'm one person, Neil. It's just an opinion.
But why, I appreciate what you're saying, but I don't understand why publicizing, not saying you have to read it or anything like that, publicizing the fact that this committee has some explanatory documents is a bad idea.
Well, first off, I didn't suggest it was a bad idea. What I suggested was that I have some concerns about it. But my concern is that the inference from a committee in publishing something is that we, you know, I mean, well, there's one thing when we're testing out a document, like any, you know, training that you put out there and you're running through it, kicking the tires, which we haven't even done yet. So prior to publicizing it and sort of inferring that this has got the blessing of the committee, when there's a pretty big question out there, I think it's premature, and I don't think anything would be harmed in a month, particularly since, to your own point, we haven't done any trial runs to see how it goes over. And although it is recognized that it is our first effort, I would like our first effort to have at least been, you know, put before some people who didn't spend so much time looking at it that they're missing, you know, words, which I find to be the case after looking at the document for a little while.
Often.
But again, that's one person's opinion.
So why are we putting it out and not telling people about it? That sounds contradictory.
Well, I think putting it out, publishing it, sizing it on the website would be something that you do prior to doing an initial run of a class. But again, it just seems premature to me.
Let's assume that both cases, that the attorney comes back and says, yeah, it's valid, the attorney comes back and says that, no, it isn't valid. How, assuming that we're legitimate for the moment, making that assumption, what impropriety or harm is there in letting folks know, hey, we've been working, and here's some more information that we have about the Code of Ethics?
Well, to be honest, I think that anybody who's tuned in right now is aware of both of those facts, but I'm also sure that they're aware of the situation we're in where we have some concerns. And we have, those concerns are fundamentally around what we're tasked with, what our objectives are, all of that. So again, I don't think there's harm in the sense that anybody's gonna be physically, financially, morally impacted by this, but I do think that moving forward, if we have to do a start and stop, that makes it worse, especially going in knowing that we have this question over us. It's a simple, I mean,
So then you really think that we shouldn't put this on the website?
no, I didn't say that. What I said was, I think putting on the website in preparation, especially if we're gonna do, if we are in advance of the, whenever the next meeting is, gonna try to do a trial meeting or something like that, which would probably have to happen before then in order to consider that as part of the, but at any rate, I don't think there's harm in putting it there, I'm just,
You don't
Yeah,
want
it's just
people
a
to know that we've put it there.
no,
So-
that's words you keep adding to what
Could
I'm
I-
saying.
But that's the consequence of what
No,
you're saying.
So could I split the difference?
Sure.
So from a transparency perspective, we talk about documents. We should post those documents so people have reference to what we're talking about, right? So that's why I'm going to post the process, even though we haven't had a hearing and we know we're going to have to tweak it. We could post the training as it is now to be transparent about this is what we're working on. What I hear you saying is the difference is when we say, hey, we have training, here it is, go take it, when we haven't actually done a trial run, feels uncomfortable to you.
I didn't suggest that we say this is for training, or at least I don't think I did.
Okay?
I thought that we were going to say, here's more information, not just to town employees, but to town citizens as well, so that they know the process that we're adopting and how the ethics committee is going to function, should they have ethical
Could I
issues.
ask, to reverse your own question, what is the harm of waiting a month until we get a readout from the attorneys? Because as I said earlier, the readout from attorneys is generally more complicated than a yes or no, and it may impact where we go from there. So I'm having I understand your passion and appreciate that, but I am having a hard time understanding why, given how long it's taken us to get to this point, another 30 days would be problematic in our reputation or the ethics standards of the town.
So what we're talking about now is not whether or not to publish, but whether or not to publicize the fact we published. Is that correct?
Whether or not to publish, well, I.
We've agreed that we're going to
Post is
post
what I-
these things on the
What I would suggest
website.
is posting, I guess posting is publishing. The semantics
No, no.
are interesting, but
Maybe I used words that are not clear. We've agreed that we're going to post on the town website the various documents that we're calling training documents or explanatory documents, okay? And then that's question number one, we've answered that with a yes. Question number two is, should we tell the world we've done this? Should we publicize the fact that there's more information on the website, okay? And you say we shouldn't,
for a month.
for a month.
Yes, sir. I think you accurately captured my position.
Going back to one of the initial statements about back in 2006, where they were told to see the town clerk for the code of ethics, and there were 3 pages there. I went to see Maureen, and she showed me what was in the office. She had original copies stapled together, pages 1, 2, and 3. And those were supposed to be put onto the website too, you know, somewhere down the road. But at first you went to the town office before the vote to get that additional information. That, to me, should be on the Code of Ethics website, because that's what was stated back in 2006, that it was gonna be on the website. You know, whether or not it has.
I'm sorry, Carl, I'm not clear what you're talking about being on the website.
The code of ethics.
The Code of Ethics.
And the implementation guidelines?
Well-
Or,
What they had in the office, the town office, was 3 pages.
aren't those on, didn't we?
The code of ethics is, but the implementation is not. And I never posted it. I went through all the entire town, searched all the way through. All they had up there was the code of ethics, the first 2 pages, not the implementation.
Right.
And so I had them put a link on our page, but the request from a town member, and I think makes sense, is, especially since we're talking about this, having that implementation up is not a bad thing. But what I hear you two going back and forth is not about the processes or the code of ethics as seen in the town office, but you're focused more on the PowerPoint.
Well, originally, we were talking about the PowerPoint, and it's a different subject to talk about whether or not it's appropriate at this point to post the guidelines that are under question right now. I mean, again, I understand both positions. It's been part and parcel of the discussion, and if you review what I put before the select board, you'll see that I covered both of those positions. So, it seems to me that the discussion that we're having now is edging into, again, what should we do with this document? And I don't know that we can answer that until we get a referral from somebody that we've given it to through the town.
So at the deliberative session on Article 40 back in 2006, it said, shall the town adopt a code of ethics which applies to all town officers, elected officials, appointed committee officials, members, and all town employees? And in parentheses, it says, a full detail of the proposed code is available in the town clerk's office during regular business hours and on the town website at www.ware.newhampshire.gov.
Right.
And there's part
And
of the
when I went to
contradiction.
Maureen, she says, this is it. And she gave me the 3 pages, not one that's just a code of ethics. And she said, when people come to look, or came to look, they got 3 pages.
Right, and the other 2 pages were never posted on the town website, as
Correct.
was called out they would be in the first 2 minutes. So again, we're rehashing the
Right.
situation, but we're not getting any closer
Right.
to resolution
So
because
I
we're gonna wait
feel
for the
like-
attorney.
Should we have a motion to table posting this for a month, or to post it now so
Well,
that we can?
if I might,
Yeah.
when we were discussing this earlier, there was no motion, there wasn't a vote.
True.
We had a
I just
discussion, so
no-
I don't know that there's an action
Okay,
required.
well, so Carl was gonna work with Naomi to post the processes. So I had also said, take the code of ethics, so everything we have and post it up. But I think what I'm hearing is there's a difference of opinion on the timing of that. And so, it doesn't have to be a motion. I just don't know how to get y'all are seeing different sides, and I don't think you're gonna come to consensus.
I agree, I think
So-
until we get the read back, we're not gonna agree on that, because we have, different,
Right.
and I think 2 different fairly based perspectives,
Mm-hmm.
which is why the question is before somebody who is educated in such things.
But in the interim, I can still put on the process documents,
Yes.
the FAQ.
And the
You have-
FAQ,
You have the
yep.
FAQ document,
Yep.
and you'll get me the latest training
I
document,
think
or
what
you
I'm
wanna hold
hearing is
off on
there's a
the
discussion
training
on that.
document?
That's kind of where I was like, maybe we don't need a motion.
So
I
just the
need to-
FAQ, the 2 process documents, or 3
Three process
documents, I'll send
And the waiver,
the waiver.
there was a waiver from participating in the hearing.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
not the PowerPoint?
I just said those 4 seem like there's no, because we've all voted on those are approved, they should be up. They would have been up last month, but I didn't get them to Naomi in time, so he was doing that for me. So those, I think we can all agree on. Then we're talking the PowerPoint and the Code of Ethics with the implementation. And I feel like there's a request to wait a month, and there's a request to say, why would we wait for transparency? It makes sense that even as we're discussing, we'd have those up now. But I don't know what to do with those 2 different,
Okay, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Would that be helpful? I move, and I'm going to use the word training document to cover the PowerPoint and anything else, in addition to what you've already told Carl he should post.
Okay.
All of the other documents should be posted on our website, and the town asked to put a notice on the town website that these documents have now been posted. So that's
Point of clarification, by when?
now, whenever Carl's
Immediately.
doing,
Yeah,
okay.
right.
All right, we have a
It's
motion.
not,
We'll
it
do
it
it
might
this-
be a day or a week, whatever it takes
I'll
them.
send it out this week,
Immediately.
by
Wait,
Friday.
wait, So we have a
I'll get it
motion,
to-
we don't have a second, do you?
Yeah,
are you-
motion, Neil.
I made the motion.
Second,
We haven't had a second yet.
oh, not yet,
No. No,
I'll second.
you'll second it? Okay, so then we have discussion.
So the discussion is the same as the other. If we're gonna go on to a formal vote, given that there's a question before the attorneys. I think waiting a month is prudent, so
Okay. All right.
Since we have the power, apparently, regardless of whether the implementation document is legally binding or not, assuming that we exist, then it only makes sense to let everybody know what we're doing. It has nothing to do with the attorney's opinion. It has to do with our practice. Whatever we do, we should make people aware of. And simply posting it on our website is not going to make people aware of it. I mean, it may accomplish meeting some technical requirement about transparency, but it doesn't accomplish the whole purpose of what we're doing, which is to let everyone know in town that we're doing this, and here it is for you folks.
So I think I've stated my opinion, but I'll just clarify. I believe in transparency. I believe all these documents should be available for people to see what we're discussing. I'm not comfortable with doing an advertisement like, here's these final documents, especially when we have a pending, a question out to the lawyers. And so as written, I can't support the motion, unfortunately.
So you would support the motion if it didn't say there should be some publicity on the town website?
I would.
Okay, I'll withdraw that from the motion.
Okay.
So the motion is now, I'll be making a second motion later.
Okay.
So this motion's withdrawn?
I'm withdrawing the motion, I'm making a new motion that we put on our website all of the documents that relate to training, including the PowerPoint.
What?
Don't you have to withdraw your second before you, did he withdraw his second?
I'll withdraw.
Okay.
Just for clarification.
Okay, thank you.
So the motion is to publish the training documents, including the PowerPoint, on the Ethics Committee's website.
Okay. And I'll second that.
Now, okay, not in a month,
Sure.
now.
Okay. Any more discussion?
point remains the same for me.
Yep, that's fair. All right, so all of those in favor of posting our documents, just posting them, for transparency's sake, as he said.
I'll second his second
Oh, I
motion.
seconded it.
You did
I
it?
did, yeah.
You stole it from me?
I did,
Okay.
sorry.
Sorry. Okay,
Okay, all those in favor,
aye.
say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Motion carries, and we'll revisit in next month.
And I'd like to make a second motion.
Okay.
I move that we ask the town to put on the town website the fact that these documents, including the PowerPoint, are available for the public.
Okay.
Again, now, not in a month.
You have a second?
One second.
Okay. All in favor of requesting, okay, go ahead.
Point of discussion. So it appears to me that this secondary motion is for the purpose of getting the original motion that you passed earlier by having the town publicize it instead of us publicize it. Am I misunderstanding that? What the purpose of the second amendment is, for the second motion? excuse
I
me?
divided my motion because I knew I had support for part of it, but not for all of it. So rather than see the whole thing go down, I divided it into two components. There is no difference between, if the second component passes, it's the same as the original motion.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Any more discussion? All right, all those in favor of the second motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, that one does not carry. Okay, any other discussions? Good, nice, quick and easy meeting. Our next scheduled meeting is June 13th.
June 13th?
June 20th.
I don't know, I probably wrote it wrong on the
Third.
agenda.
Third.
It's the third week, yeah.
Third week
See,
should be the
I am
20th.
just, I'm ready to be off.
6/13, 20th.
Thank
Okay, so
you.
we've only
Just
got it
before
down.
spring ends.
Right.
Right, all right,
good.
1,
Yes.
2, 3, 20th, you're right, it's even on my calendar that way, my
I
mistake.
will not be in town
Okay.
on that date.
Okay, very good.
Be either be in Alaska.
Nice, I'm so glad, I'm jealous.
Since
Alright.
it's supposed to be a hot summer, it was a good choice.
Perfect choice.
Okay, I then conclude the May 16th, 2024 meeting of the Ware Ethics Committee. Thank you all for participating.